Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We still have people logging on. Thanks to all who have joined us. I'm Stacy Felkar with AgSmart. And as you know, today would have been the first day of AgSmart, our second edition of the event, but due to the COVID restrictions, we weren't able to have our live event. So we're very excited to engage with you today virtually. And we are working on a variety of different engagements for producers to continue to be that educational bridge surrounding the ag tech industry between producers and the industry. So as you may have noticed, in June we launched our virtual ag tech directory, and that is live off of our website and includes over 50 listings for a variety of ag tech related companies. So make sure to go check that out if you haven't yet. And this morning we are launching our AgSmart Theater, which is a virtual library of ag tech related videos. So they come with a variety of categories with educational sessions, demos, and producer viewpoints. So we'll be adding to that library continually with our stakeholders videos. So make sure you go check that out as well and utilize that as a resource moving forward. So we are also going to be recording today's webinar and adding that to AgSmart Theater, as well as the upcoming webinar sessions in this series. So we will have additional details on those upcoming webinars in the future as well. So I will turn things over to our moderator, Dr. Joy Agnew, Associate VP Applied Research at Olds College. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I think it's going to be a really great discussion. So I'm just going to, I guess, provide some general comments and opening remarks, and then I'll be turning it over to our panelists for them to introduce themselves, their operations, and their overall view, I guess, of ag tech and the ag tech space. So just to quickly set the stage, Olds College is extremely proud to be building a smart ag ecosystem to support the evolving needs of the agriculture and agri-food industry. The college is fortunate to be able to leverage a 100+ year history of cropping and livestock operations and ag-focused teaching and learning platforms to develop world-class facilities for education, demonstration, and applied research focused on smart ag technologies and practices. And I'm proud to be a part of that team and wish that I could be out with AgSmart today, showing you these projects and technologies firsthand. But unfortunately, we're talking about it today, and we'll join you next year with our hands-on learning environment in AgSmart. The timing of this webinar series is impeccable, quite honestly, because even in a pandemic-riddled world, investment support for ag tech development and integration is very strong, with new competitions and challenges being announced almost every week, covering the entire innovation cycle from research to commercialization. Olds College is proud to be a core partner in CANE, the Canadian Agri-Food Automation and Intelligence Network that was spearheaded by Alberta Innovates, and is bringing together a really strong network of academia and industry partners from across Canada to help focus on automation and digitization of agriculture. CANE is intending to use the Olds College Smart Farm and our smart ag ecosystem as a hub to develop, test, and demonstrate new technologies. And we are actively working to launch a pan-Canadian smart farm network that is going to facilitate ag tech research and development and extension and training across Canada. So please stay tuned for that. I am particularly happy to be moderating today's session, where we are focusing on farmers' perspectives related to adoption and use of ag technologies. At Olds College, we work directly with producers to better understand how ag tech and smart solutions may fill a gap or a need that they have to help them improve productivity for their operations. And then we provide them with unbiased information on the functionality, connectivity, and interoperability of the technologies that we are adopting and working with on our farm for our farm operations. So I'm particularly happy to be introducing today Sandy, Jason, and Jeff because we've had some great discussions in the past over the past few months. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion today to learn more about how they view ag tech as, serving a need that they have for their operations. So our first panelist to provide their intro and overview today is Sandy Russell. Sandy farms in Saskatchewan and is a fellow graduate from the University of Saskatchewan. So I'll turn it over to Sandy for her to provide her opening remarks.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you to Olds College for arranging this and inviting me to be part of this panel. I think I've said to the other panelists and the organizers, I feel like I'm going to learn just as much or more probably than I provide in my comments, but I'm excited to be part of this discussion because I think it's critical, and especially coming from more of a livestock industry background and a beef industry background, I think it's critical that we engage in these discussions and really focus on how ag tech can benefit us in our operations. So I'm Sandy Russell. I am joining you from West Central Saskatchewan. I grew up on a commercial cattle operation, and as Joy said, I went as far as the big city of Saskatoon to get my degrees from the University of Saskatchewan from the Department of Animal Science, and I'm a proud graduate of that university. I think there's a lot of exciting ag tech things going on there as well. But I think, having had that background in education, I love academia and the leadership that it shows in terms of adoption and technologies that we can use. After university, I went out into the workforce, always trying to get back to the ranch. I grew up in West Central Saskatchewan, and now I'm looking out over my pasture that is all of 3 miles from where I grew up. So while I've traveled the world, I keep coming back to the Central Saskatchewan, and this is home. I also operate a consulting business and offer consulting services to the beef industry. And have done that since 2008 from a home office and from the ranch. And that really allowed me the opportunity to be involved and have boots on the ground, which is really where my passion lies and I love. But I also love the industry and moving our industry forward and working in the policy level and the marketing and economics. I have an economic background. So everything I look at comes from a lens of how can it return to the bottom line for our industry and for myself as our business and our operation. Like I said, I sit looking out over the pasture this morning, and it's thankfully a green grass on this side, although we're getting a little dry. It's nice to be able to keep that connection. And I think that's the key thing with anything, is keeping that direct connection to production. But I've had the luxury to work with some of our leading organizations and work on some really interesting technology opportunities to advance our industry. If I'm at all critical of the beef sector, it's that we maybe have lagged a little bit in our adoption. But I think too that we have tons of opportunity. There is a lot of technologies that we have not even begun to tap into. And so one of the exciting things that I work in and am really passionate about is, from the breeding and genetic and DNA technology side of things, what that opens up to our industry. We have a lot of learning we can do there and a lot of potential to offer technologies to the grassroots rancher, purebred sector, seed stock sector, and up through the whole production chain. So I'm very excited for everyone's comments today. And like I said, I'm excited to learn from everyone else, as much as hopefully offer some comments about where I see technology helping our industry as we go forward in this new normal, as they say, as we find our new footing. Thanks, Joy.
Great, thanks, Sandy. Great comments, and already leading into some good discussion, I can tell, coming up in the next half hour. Our next panelist is Jason Lenz, who is a member of the AgSmart Advisory Group and a mixed farm operator near Sylvan Lake, Alberta.
Well, thanks, Joy, and good morning, everyone. It certainly is my pleasure to be a panelist on today's webinar. I guess Sandy and I aren't that far different after all. She lives close to where she was born and raised, and I'm still in the same piece of ground as well. not a much better place to live than in central Saskatchewan or here in central Alberta. But for today, I think Sandy and Jeff and I are all going to bring a little bit different perspective. And I can only hope that I have as many interesting things to tell you as they do. I also like to just take this chance to thank Bill and Stacy, Joy, and everyone at Olds College who has put this webinar together. As Joy mentioned, my name is Jason Lenz. I'm a third-generation farm boy here on our farm, which is located in the beautiful Blind Man Valley, which is just north of Sylvan Lake near Bentley. Our farm grows malt barley, 2 different types of wheats, canola, and faba beans. And we also have a small cow-calf operation. So, you know, maybe before I really get started here, I do have a story to tell about maybe why I'm here and how I became very interested in what is happening at Olds College. I still remember the day that I first met Stuart Cullum, and I should still be remember. It was only about 5 years ago, but we met through a mutual friend, and Stuart wanted to ask me about this vision he had about creating a smart farm and having Olds College become the leading hub for ag technology. And to me, it was one of the best ideas I had heard, and thought it potentially could fill a gap for us in the agricultural industry. So here's why. I think the topic of today's webinar is certainly one that is important to me. As we all know, a large percentage of our food that we grow here in Western Canadian farms is exported into the global marketplace. What I grow, you know, feeds people all around the world. And, you know, maybe full disclosure on that one is some of them just like to drink the beer that is brewed from the malt barley that I grow. So definitely lots of that happening. But anyways, as a grower of that food, I do want to do the best job possible to produce not just as much as I can, but more importantly, the highest quality, because that's how I can make my farm the most sustainable over the long run. I think we're already doing a really great job of that, as our crop commodities and our beef are recognized around the world as being of the highest quality. So much so, you know, so much so that our highest quality wheat is being used to blend into other wheat to improve its overall quality. So that's the story right there. I think the use of technology and the equipment that we use and in our crop genetics is also part of the reason for that. And in many ways, we can use that to tell our story about the many beneficial management practices that we currently use on our farms to achieve that quality every year. On our farm, I guess we can be considered an early adopter of some of today's latest ag technology. We use GPS guided steering on all of our large equipment. We employ the variable rate technology to apply our fertilizer and seed with the help of Farmer's Edge. And we make use of yield mapping technology on our combine as well. And on top of all that, at the end of the year, we use temperature and moisture sensors, which Joy knows a little bit about, in our grain bins that I can actually access from my smartphone. And also, as of this spring, I'm a drone pilot, so that's something new. But so yes, you know, I am a user of a lot of this great new technology, but still definitely not a master of any of them. Especially as a pilot, but they all are becoming very useful on our farm. I think many farms are like mine and are using some of that technology that is in the equipment that we purchase, but I wonder, are we using it to its fullest capacity and to the most benefit of our farm? Right now, I would say no, and part of the reason is we don't know how to use the data that we collect and put it all into a usable form that would enable us to make improvements in our overall efficiencies. So I guess in closing, to me, that is why what Olds College is doing with the Smart Farm and the teaching opportunities they're providing are very important. I think it'll definitely attract young people to our industry and lead us into the next generation of farming using the technology that is available to us. I think us as Western Canadian farmers are well positioned to continue to do what we do, and that's growing safe and healthy food. So that's it for me. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to any questions upcoming.
Thanks, Jason. Great intro, and you touched on a point that is obviously recognized as critical by the team here at Olds College, where utilization of data. Collecting data is relatively straightforward and simple. It's managing it and using it for evidence-based decisions that seems to be the challenge. So we have an entire set of research projects and academic training and programming around that exact topic. So it's definitely recognized as a gap or a challenge right now. So thank you. Our third panelist is Jeff Carlson, lawyer, farmer, entrepreneur extraordinaire, based on his bio, with operations in both Saskatchewan and Alberta. Jeff?
Like the other, like Jason and Sandy, I still live on the same farm that I grew up on. We happen to be about a half an hour from Olds College, and so my great grandfather actually attended Olds College a million years ago, I think, or something like that. We farm. We're a little bit unique. We grow the standard commodity crops: peas, canola, malt barley, wheat, on our farms, both here and in southeast Saskatchewan. And I think the challenges that we find, or what we find with some new things that we unique, being that we have a little more scale. We're trying to apply these technologies over, and then multi-locations. And I think that the smart farm and what Olds College is doing is critical right now, because we have so much information that we're collecting, but I know we're not utilizing it like we should. We also do variable rate seeding and fertilizing and yield mapping and all that. But the weather monitoring that we're doing is just starting to touch on some of our operations. It's informative, but I'm looking forward to it starting to actually help us make decisions real time and to change the way that we operate. Because I look at the vast amounts of data that are being collected, and they're underutilized because we're not taking action based on that data in real time. And that's the struggle that we have. So I'm looking forward to working with Olds College. We recently started working with Olds this last year on a project with the DOT, and which is the seed master right behind Joy there. And it's been an excellent experience. Like anything new, it takes patience and time to work through the tech, but all the tech that we've adopted over the years takes a significant amount of investment that way. So we're looking forward to it.
Thanks, Jeff. And thanks also for mentioning the DOT project. If you didn't bring it up, I was going to. Olds College is fortunate to be able to work with Jeff and his farm team to operate the DOT equipment on an expanded number of acres, basically, because like Jeff said, it's a steep learning curve. Adopting autonomous technology in a non-autonomous world, so to speak, and just better understanding of the overall logistical efficiency and the challenges around autonomous ag, deployment. It needs to be operated on as many acres as possible. And while we do have a 2,000 acre farm here at Olds College, we wanted to be able to expand that, and we're able to partner with Jeff's farm to do that. And I believe sprayed just over 1,000 acres on Jeff's farm this year, and learned a lot in that experience. So thanks, Jeff. All right, so just to let everyone know, I'm going to now sort of guide the panelists through a conversation around ag tech integration and adoption on farm. They've all touched on their experiences a little bit already, but for members of the audience, if you have questions or if you would like a specific topic addressed, please feel free to just type it into the Q&A session or the Q&A option in the Zoom window, and I will facilitate or moderate those questions as we go. So the first, I guess, guiding question that I'll provide to the panelists is, not necessarily related to technology that you're already using on your farm, but just take a step back and talk to us about the specific challenges or hurdles that you experience on your operation that you expect or would like technology to play a role in alleviating in the next 5 or 10 years. So I'll turn it over to Sandy to start.
Thanks, Joy. And there's so many things I could talk about, but I would be remiss, and I'm hoping Jeff and Jason don't have this problem, but I suspect they probably do, as I sit here on a Zoom virtual meeting, crossing my fingers that I don't run into any technical difficulties, because I keep getting the message that says internet connection unstable, right? We are rural, and connectivity is our biggest challenge. And not just, I mean, at the headquarters in the main area, but as you go out into, you know, the pastures, the fields, the far off areas, it gets even worse. So connectivity, and I'm not kidding you, the notice just popped up again. Like that's how, so fingers crossed you can hear my comments. But I think the biggest challenge for agriculture as a whole, quite frankly, and for all of us in our individual operations, is having the ability to utilize the technology. And I think it was you, Jeff, that said real time. This is a real-time world, and being able to make real-time decisions is critical to our businesses, and at times means the difference between profit and loss. And I strongly feel that that is our biggest challenge. Everything else is a challenge, you know, that I can list a lot of different issues in terms of education and understanding and adoption into my specific business or into the industry as a whole. But I think that number one hurdle of having the ability to utilize the technology has to be overcome. And agriculture will always be a rural and, you know, extensively based kind of industry that requires those kinds of infrastructure to be able to utilize. And so I got on my soapbox a bit there, as you can tell. As running multiple businesses from a rural location, it is a challenge. And to be able to utilize these ever evolving technologies, whether it's, you know, inputting data and being able to upload and download that data quickly, or whether it's animal health, you know, I think about the ability to manage and Jason talked about, I think it was Jason, you mentioned being, you know, utilization of drones. And as we look at drone utilization in pastures and managing cattle, and that technology is there, you have to be able to access it. And that is critical to our ability to be connected in real time. And then also, you know, I have to touch upon the challenge of the mass amount of data that comes to us, and being able to sort through that and knowing what data matters and what is just noise. And because there is so much available to us, that being able to sort through that, I think, is one of the biggest challenges, and determining what's the biggest return for our investment with regards to time management and data utilization and adoption. So like I said, there's no end of challenges, but that I always believe leads to many opportunities.
Thanks, Sandy. Those were yeah, great comments. And again, validating a lot of what we are hearing from, you know, all the producers and all of the industry stakeholders that we're talking about around connectivity is basically point number one, right? You can develop technologies and even methods of utilizing data, but if there's no way to reliably access to then utilize that data, it's you know, almost all for nothing. And you know, great point. Is an obvious point, but it was a great one, that agriculture is always going to be rural. As in definition, primary agriculture and primary production is always going to happen in those areas that, you know, are more far removed from those urban centers and of high connectivity zones. So we have to, you know, find solutions to that challenge. So thank you.
Absolutely. And just one comment, Joy, from a beef perspective, that is our biggest advantage, is we use those lands that can't be utilized elsewhere, and they're often found in far off places where there's not a lot of people. That is our biggest advantage, but it's also our biggest challenge.
Right. Okay, Jason, I'll turn that question over to you.
Yeah, well, certainly Sandy's second point about the usage of the data they collect is probably the one challenge that I had right at the top of the list. Connectivity, I think that fits everywhere, like you suggested, Joy. If we don't have that, we really don't have anything to use this this technology that we have in our equipment and that. So I think to me, the biggest challenge is pulling all that data together that we collect throughout the growing season and using it effectively to make better decisions going into next season's crop. For us as grain growers, we're continuously striving for continuous improvement year over year, and we're being forced to push the limits of yield potential in our crops to achieve, really the highest potential return that we can. And in doing this, we really have become very efficient with the use of our crop inputs. And, that would be definitely something that Jeff knows all about. We have to be efficient with the usage of that because, the price of wheat is still $7 today like it was back in 1975. So we've gained efficiencies in size of our operations and the yields that we are not now able to grow. But the ability to manage that data that we collect, such as soil samples, the yield data, weather data, and so on, and then to really be able to intelligently put it all together and use it to compare to other growing seasons with similar weather and those type of things, I think is really an area that we can get better at. And once again, I think this is a place that Olds College and the training of young people can help old farmers like me to understand how to use that data better, and even how to use some of the equipment better to its full capacity. That's it.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Jeff, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, Jason said he's an old farmer. I kind of feel like I'm an old farmer these days too. So, I feel that. As a matter of fact, I'm so old. You guys were talking about drones. I regret to inform you we're on our second drone, and I'm not allowed to pilot anymore. The younger generation has taken over the drone piloting because the first one had an untimely demise. I think what I look for when I look at technology is I'm looking for it to solve some problems. I mean, I'm primarily a business guy, so everything, like Sandy said earlier, goes somewhat to the bottom, either the bottom line or long-term soil health. Those are kind of two categories for me. And we're looking through the DOT and through other tech that we're using, and we're trying for something that's going to solve labor shortages. We're seeing labor shortages in trained individuals, which is something that Olds College is also addressing with their new program, which will be a wonderful resource. We're seeing machinery cost increases that are out of this world, and so the utilization of that machinery becomes important. Every piece needs to be more and more efficient. You have to do more and more acres with it in order to justify the cost of replacement. We're also living in a world of I believe more weather extremes. We see in our area, we see lots of hail, more hail this year than we've seen for a while, and the hail seems to keep getting bigger and bigger. So, while we can't really change that as much as we'd like to, we're hoping that we can adapt to using the technology and trying to apply, efficient resources on different fields and stuff to deal with certain things. Probably the final issue right now lately, and this is always ongoing in agriculture, is all the geopolitical trade issues that come up, whether it be in beef or grain. We always get hit with everything. The rail strikes last fall, they hit us, right? So as we apply tech and we apply these I guess more refined management tools along the way, I'm hoping that data can be used by, some of the trade groups and stuff like that, to better the world in general so that we're more efficient. I mean, here we are in the 20th century, we have people starving in the world and there's food going to waste. Things like that they're just annoying. They're not necessary.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I can't remember where the reference was for this that I came across in the past year or so, but as producers worldwide, we are producing more than enough calories of food to feed every single person on the planet, and yet it's the geopolitical trade issues and logistical challenges and, food wastage and food loss that's happening because we might be producing more food here but need it elsewhere. You would think and hope that technology and a different sort of culture around how we manage food trade can help alleviate that. But it's obviously a huge challenge. All right, we do have some great questions from the audience, but I'll move on to another question that I had sort of warned the panelists that we'd be covering. So now, I guess, turning to actual tech adoption on your farm, what do you personally consider or want to know about a new technology or a widget or a practice, a new smart practice, for example, before considering adopting that technology or practice for your operation? And where do you go to gather the information that you're looking for? Sandy?
Yeah, I think I might sound a bit like a broken record, Joy, but what's the return on investment is really what we look at, or what I think any operation needs to consider when you consider adopting a new technology. Whether it's utilizing the data that exists or trying to maximize the resources we have, or investing in something new. We ultimately want to be always exploring and analyzing that decision based on what it means for the return to the bottom line. I think when it comes to where we go to look for those things, that's about being engaged in the innovative technologies. And for example, Olds College and these AgSmart and smart farms, and tapping into those resources is critical, because that's where we learn the most, is from being engaged and our connections with kind of academia and the innovative thinkers of the industry and of agriculture. And I think too, I have to give a plug right now. The minute I get off of here, I'll be tapping into the Canadian Beef Industry Conference, which is just getting underway virtually, of course, because of our new world, but getting underway today for the industry. And I think learning from other producers. I have the luxury of working and having a business where it connects me with many, many leaders in our industry. And some of those early adopters are the people I learned the most from, and what they're doing in terms of innovative technology and adopting them on their farms and on their ranches, I think is one of the big areas where you can learn and build off of those technologies. But ultimately for us, it's about improving the sustainability of our operation, and that, profit, social, and environmental are the three pillars that we focus on, and it has to really improve the sustainability of the operation. And that's ultimately what I think needs to be the litmus test for what technologies we will consider or adopt.
Great. Thanks, Sandy. I know Jeff made a similar comment in his opening remarks, or in the previous discussion around making decisions based on bottom line and or long-term soil health. And I'm thinking that those two are obviously connected, right? Because long-term soil health leads to that environmental and economic sustainability, because farming is all about the soil, right? So Jeff, I'll jump right to you then. Do you have anything to add around, what do you personally consider when you think about adopting a new technology or practice for your farm?
We do look at the investment side, of course, and well, I think your question was two things. One, what do we look at, and where do we get our information? Is that correct?
Yes, that is right.
So, we look at the business case, but a lot of the new technology is not a real solid business case set, because we're usually at the forefront of the research, or certainly an early adopter. I would say the challenges that we have sometimes are, well, I know there's some bankers on our group here, the finance side of our life. They are conservative, and they want to make sure that we're not making foolish investments, which is great, but sometimes we need to move forward without the business case really clear in front of us. And we have had some pretty good wins where we've adopted technology early on. Whether it's, I think we were some of the first in our particular area, not in Western Canada, to do some direct seeding and all the zero-till stuff, and And, you know, I mean, the advantages that have come with that over the year are pretty clear. So, so, you know, having friendly bankers, I think, is important, and ones that will look at the tech with you and make that leap of faith somewhat together. I do a fair bit of research, like everybody, as much up front. I've gone to conferences in San Francisco and stuff like that, AgTech conferences, and I mean, there's a lot to sort through. There's a lot of tech out there that I look at and think I'll never use that, you know, or we can't really see a use for it. But and then also the data that comes out of that tech. So, you know, I had this conversation with somebody that was flying planes over doing mapping a couple of years ago. This was down in San Francisco, actually. And they're like, yeah, we can come up, and you have enough acres, we'll come up and we'll fly these acres and we'll give you maps, and we'll give you, you know, 20 maps throughout the summer, right? And I'm like, that's not use to me, because like once I'm done spraying, you know, I don't get to go back and change anything. You know, basically I have a window of opportunity where I can change, you know, some sprays or some fertility, but after that, the extra maps just become burdensome. They're pretty pictures, and that's about it. So it is a little bit of a testing each piece of tech to see whether you're going to use it on the farm, how you're going to use it, how you're going to monetize it. Somewhat, I mean, it's got to come down to extra yields or lower costs somehow, right? Or make it easier to manage the acres. So those are kind of our decisions, I think, that we make. I'm looking over the next few years, I guess. Still, you know, we have always, I think, in this industry, ag is not always the quickest to adopt, and we do have issues with people adopting tech. I mean, auto steer on machines. I was amazed sometimes. You know, we have seasonal combine drivers that come in, and literally for the first 5 years, every year we had to have a auto steer course, because they just either couldn't remember from one year to the next, which I understand, but you know, that makes it hard to move forward. You know, I'm really pleased that Olds College is actually investing in a training program where they're going to be having graduates that come out that are at the forefront of the tech world and have seen and practiced with some of the new tech, because that's going to be a real asset, I think.
Jeff, just a quick follow-up question. You noted that, you know, a lot of new technologies, you know, the fact that you're an early adopter, it means the technologies don't really necessarily have a strong business case. So how do you personally make a decision when there may not be a strong business case? How do you decide, yeah, I'm going to look into this some more, or yeah, no, this isn't for me?
Well, you know, you try a lot of things, right? And you get to be a little bit older and you start to be able to sort a little bit through almost, I mean, I hate to say gut instinct, but you kind of, you know, there's a certain amount of stuff that you can look at and say, well, yes, or no, that's not for me. And I mean, each individual farm operates a little differently and has different, even a different workforce, right? If you have a bunch that are really quick to adopt and easy to train from a tech perspective, you're going to try more things because you have a stronger team. You know, if you have a team that you have to kind of hold their hand all the way through, you have to be hesitant on you know, learning, right? I mean, people can only learn and change so much, and so you can take and you can throw 10 new things into your business operation and fail at all of them, or you can just kind of sort through those and pick one or two and try to succeed with those, and usually you do. And so, you know, I kind of tease my guys saying, you guys can only learn a couple things a year, but as long as you learn them, we're moving forward, right? So.
Okay, great. No, thanks for that insight. Jason, I will turn it over to you. What do you personally consider or want to know when thinking about a new technology, and where do you go to gather that information?
Well, I certainly think Sandy and Jeff kind of touched on where I was going to go on this, and that was on the return on investment. But, you know, just going back to a couple comments by both of them, you know, we've talked about sustainability a little bit today here already, and sustainability really isn't a new word to farmers, or it's not a new practice or method. And none of us would be farming today if we if we weren't doing things to be sustainable and looking after the soil and the water and the air and our animals and all those types of things. So the use of technology in some ways is making that much easier for us. And I use a modern day dairy barn as an example. Like, wow, I went into one not too long ago and seen the robotics and everything that's happening there. That's pretty awesome use of new technology in that sector. So, you know, we're not that far off in our cropping sector. When you look at things like dots, you know, certainly I see that a big future for that down the road. But getting back to your question, Joy, I think there really are a couple of really primary considerations for me. First and foremost is, number one is, how is that new technology on my farm going to make me a better farmer? And number two, how is it going to pay for itself? And I think both Sandy and Jeff touched on that. There has to be return on investment because the price of that equipment is very high. And sure, it usually comes down over time as there gets to be more manufacturers and that. But you know, to be an early adopter, you are definitely paying a premium for it. So I think Jeff basically touched on what I wanted to add there on implementing and using that equipment over a large number of acres. Obviously, if you can spread that cost out over or more acres, it's going to give you a faster return on investment. And I do have one example of a technology that I recently considered, but haven't bitten the bullet or haven't really seen a need for it on our farm, and that is sectional control on our seed drill. And you know, I guess a little bit fortunate here where we farm, all our fields are fairly square, so we don't run into areas where you know, the field comes to a V or something like that, where we could really put sectional control to good use on our farm. And yes, it might help a little bit on the headlands, but there's ways to correct those problems without having sectional control. So that in itself is a big ticket on any new seed drill, and one that's I've been able to avoid incurring those costs because of just because of some of the way our fields are all laid out here. So.
Great comment, Jason, and it illustrates something that I know everyone here knows, but it probably bears sort of reinforcement that, you know, not all technology is going to be suited for every single operation, or it's not a one size fits all solution. There's got to be some, you know, critical thinking and critical judgment about whether or not there is a value to a particular farm. And that was a perfect example with sectional control. You know, the return isn't going to be as good for fields that are more uniform or more square, I guess, or regular. So yeah, great point. Thank you.
I better answer the second part of your question. I would be doing my job today, but it was really about where do you go to learn or research some of that stuff. And you know, for me as a farmer, it's definitely the trade shows, something like AgSmart, Agri-Trade, any of them that happen in Western Canada is really where you learn what's coming down the pipeline, and you can really you know, maybe picture how you could use that on your farm. And certainly, I think Sandy mentioned how she uses other producers and her network, and certainly probably Jeff and his business as well. For me, being involved in the cropping commissions here in Alberta, you know, kind of you're sitting there with your peers, and for most cases, many of those guys are quite progressive farmers. So, you know, you sit and listen to them and what they're using and how it's benefiting their farms.
Great, thank you. I'm going to jump to, I guess, an audience member question. It is a great one from Mark Fournier, who is a faculty member here in the Workland School of Ag Technology. So his question is knowing that technology is always changing and evolving, what technological skill sets should upcoming or future farmers focus on? And Jeff, you mentioned in your commentary on the last question that, you know, adoption of technology on your farm is sometimes tied to the skill set that you have on your farm. Like, do you think the team has the ability to actually take hold of this technology and utilize it? So I'll start with you. I'll turn it over to you. What technological skill set should future farmers be focusing on?
That's a good question. I would say, you know, there sometimes becomes a fascination with tech for just because it's new, because there's this new tech. It's, you know, it's shiny, it's cool, and you have people that you have on one side of the continuum. You have people that just want to change and just want to enjoy tech and apply tech, but they don't actually leverage that tech over the operation very well because they're not spreading it out. They're not training the team. The other side, you have people that don't want to change ever. We have a saying on our farm. It's basically crawl, walk, run. So every team member at whatever stage they're at, you know, with different tasks, have different levels of ability. And so, you know, we will ask them, where are you at on this task? Are you at a crawl? Are you at a walk? Or are you ready to run with it? And from a task specific perspective, it allows people to say, hey, I'm good on that one, but I'm not good on this one. You know, I'm not there yet. And so, you know, when I look at skill sets, obviously there's familiarity with tech. You know, I don't believe in the farming operations. I got a son that's in engineering, and I mean, he's all about coding and various things like that. But you know, I think from the actual farming perspective, you know, we're going to allow other people to do that for us. But to be able to understand, you know, the way most tech works, the menu systems, the way that they're operating, to be able to sort through sensors and sort through tech problems. You know, there's a generation out there that can fix anything mechanical, but as soon as there's an error message that comes up on the computer of the combine, they just freeze. I mean, some of the most bright guys, you know, but they just don't have that ability or patience to work through it because they can't hit it with a hammer. Mm-hmm. So, you know, meanwhile, there's younger guys that, you know, can flip through the screen fast, but if there's a mechanical failure, you know, they are staring at it like, what now? So, you know, cross training, having that broad experience, but the attitude, I think, of just being able to settle down and to take a breath and to start working through the problem from step one all the way to the final step. That's really what I look for. I look for people that are patient, people that are calm, people that are willing to learn, and that are, quite frankly, very, very high in perseverance. We want problem solvers. I always say we get paid in this world to problem solve. If you're not solving a problem today, you know, you're not getting paid enough. So that's what I look for in the individuals.
Great comments. And I agree with a lot, like almost everything that you said. But one thing that really struck out to me is that, you know, you're basically saying that the ag tech workforce, I guess, or the workforce of the future needs to be, you know, broadly skilled or generalists and not necessarily specialists. Not everyone needs to be an expert coder in order to utilize technology to its best advantage, and likely going to be relying more on teams of broadly skilled individuals rather than, you know, individuals of highly skilled individuals. So yeah, I 100% agree with everything that you said.
And one thing I'd add to that is our team is not just our employees. Our team is our dealerships. Our team is our advisors. You know, I do some consulting and advising for different companies too. Like, our team is broad, and you don't have to have that expertise on your team. You just have to know where you can find it and get it.
Yeah, no, agree. Jason, I'll turn that question over to you. What technological skill set or soft skill set even do you think upcoming farmers should be focusing on?
Well, definitely great comments by Jeff there on the actual team, and that's something that I've certainly relied on through our dealerships. And to be honest with you, I think our dealerships can do a lot better job in following up on the after sales of some of that equipment. Some of them are challenged by not having enough people that are skilled enough to do that. But you know, us as farmers, we can be called jacks of all trades, and we're welders and we're vets and we're soil scientists and all that. But sometimes we do have to rely on those outside sources to help us, and certainly helping us with this ag tech is where I rely on our dealership. But you know, the other thing that Jeff mentioned is being comfortable with using the equipment, and that's one that I've really noticed on our farm. I still farm here with my father, and he's a little bit, he's pretty progressive, but he's scared to use the monitor, scared to use computer because he's worried that it's going to blow up or he's going to wreck something. And I've tried to teach him that no, if you follow the steps, it'll do what you want it to do. But so certainly that's kind of talking about the patience and perseverance and problem solving of using some of this equipment. But the one that I would really point to, Joy, to answer your question would be something I mentioned earlier in my opening, and that'd be kind of data analysis and having the ability to put all that data together. For me, for example, when I'm building my variable rates prescriptions, I want to be able to use the soil sample layer, the yield mapping layer, some of the imagery layers that I use or that I have access to, and to build the best possible prescription for that field. And that's where I rely on Farmers Edge to do some of that. Can they do better at that? For me, I definitely think that they can, but I'm to the point now after being a customer of theirs and using that technology for, 5 years now, that's I'm getting a much better understanding of it. But at the same time, I think there's lots of room to be better at that as well. So I think that would be my answer to your question, Joy, is the skill set would be to have the ability and the intelligence to analyze that data and put it to the best use.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Same question over to you, Sandy.
Thanks. Yeah, and I would just reiterate both what Jeff and Jason have said. They touched, I think, on the key thing, and it really, from my perspective, is knowing your skill set and then admitting where you're less skilled in, and going out and building that team that you need to help you in that area. I think that's, as farmers and ranchers, we're independent people. We're typically, get or done kind of people. And one of you mentioned jack of all trades. I always add master of none in my case. You feel like you're juggling a lot of balls and just doing it part way sometimes. And I think this next generation, and we're getting better all the time at recognizing we don't have to be on top of everything. We have to know what we're good at, and then build the team around you that can help you and fill in the gaps and in where you need it. And I think that's critical. Our vets, our nutritionists, they all are part of our critical team. Our bankers, someone mentioned bankers, they're all part of the critical team that makes our ranch successful. And that, I think, taking that approach is what is so essential as we go forward, and identifying what you're best at and building your skill set, not only in the area you're best at, but where you feel your best, your time is best applied, and then build the team around you.
Great comments. And I think, a lot of what the discussion that we just had addresses the next question that came in from the audience around the work culture in agriculture, and how that may be shifting or changing with the use of autonomous technologies and IT and other tech. So what I heard the panelists talk about was, the team approach and understanding limitations and building skills that are needed to ensure that the entire team has the skills needed to address any new challenges with ag tech integration. So I guess any additional comments from the panelists around how you see the work culture in agriculture changing or being affected by the adoption of these new technologies? Jason?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Joy. And having been involved in sports and teams in my past, you really see the value of working together, and the leaders stick out, and they're really the people. So whether it's the farm business owner or the farm foreman or whoever, you're only as good as the people that you're surrounded with, and you have to make sure that they feel important and they have a very good focus of what's expected of them. So that's really what makes any sort of team better, is to not only you have to show appreciation for what they do, but you have to let them learn themselves a little bit too, and they have to be challenged. So I think as farms grow bigger, more acres, you're gonna have more equipment operators. I think that's going to be a very important aspect of on-farm work culture.
Great, thanks, Jason. Jeff.
Yeah, I think from a work culture perspective, changes that I'm seeing are, I would say, people, younger people, are very quick to pick up the phone and to be distracted. And so we try to help them learn to focus on the task at hand more, which, is good and bad as far as tech goes. But I think generally as a team goes, we try to invest in our team. So, we are sometimes going out of our way to meet a team member where they're at and invest in them in a program or a little course or something that can help them in the area that, they feel like they want to improve in. Sometimes it's not necessarily directly related to your task, but it can be just a matter of, improving them and self-improvement, because that ability to go forward, I think, carries forward into their world. And once they see that you're willing to invest in them, I think they become more committed to you.
Great. Thank you. Because we're running a little bit short on time, there is one more, I guess, wrap-up question that I wanted to get to, Sandy. So sorry, I won't be able to get to you for that last one, but I'll offer you the first opportunity to answer this last general wrap-up question, and that's what areas of ag or what areas of your operation do you just simply think can't be solved by technology, or what roles can technology not replace or be difficult to replace? Like, what going forward is always going to be done sort of with business as usual approaches?
Oh, what a good question. I think that what a man, I could talk for a long time about that, but especially from the beef industry perspective, we are a tradition-based kind of industry, but I think ultimately agriculture and our business is about the people making the business it is today. And so I don't think, as we look at autonomous technology and as we look at all these new opportunities, it ultimately still is about the land, the people that run that land and the animals on it, and how can we better produce more efficiently, more sustainably, produce the top quality beef in the world. And that really is the ultimate goal. And while technology can help us do that, it will never replace that, the people that are involved in it and the decisions that need to be made. And so ultimately, I think utilizing that technology to the best of its ability, but still focusing on those pillars of what are important in our industry and agriculture, and that's people connecting to the land and the animals. That's
great answer. 100% agree. Jason, do you have anything to add around what part of your operations just cannot be replaced by technology?
Well, Sandy's walking around in her pastures checking cows, and to me, that's the most important thing that I can do as a crop producer, is to get some mud on my boots and get my pants wet and actually be out in the field and see what's going on. Sure, I can get the bird's eye view using a drone and things like that, but for me to spend time walking in each and every one of my fields and seeing exactly what's going on, that's the best thing that I can do, and I don't think that'll ever be replaced.
Great, thank you. And Jeff, you get the last word on this one.
Well, I would just say quickly, we're trying right now to apply science to agriculture, and science and technology should improve us as humans. It should improve our decision making. It should improve our results. But I still believe that farming is an art, and there's a lot of things that you cannot describe in there. Like you said, you got to go out, you got to walk the fields. You got to, I don't see how you're ever going to make cow-calf a business that you can, apply without going out and checking calves. So, there's that art of farming, and that's what we all love. And that, quite frankly, is our best asset, because we love what we do and we can sell that to the world. And that's where we engage people, is in the art of farming.
Great comments. Thank you to all the panelists, and I will turn it back over to Stacy really quick to wrap up.
Thanks, Dr. Agnew. And to all of our producer panelists, that was a very insightful discussion and a perfect ending as well. As mentioned, the recording of the webinar will be available on our newly launched AgSmart Theater, which is on our website, agsmartolds.ca. Go check that out. We will follow up via email with the details of the next webinar in the series. And we hope to see you next year at AgSmart in person. And so save the date for AgSmart 2021, which will be August 10th and 11th at Olds College. Thanks for joining us.